Hello and welcome to my new Blender tutorial. It's about geometry nodes, and we built this little village here with random house sizes and random rooftops. And yeah, let's get right started. So we start with a brand new file, new general, and of course I want to turn on my screencast keys so you can see what I'm typing here. And yeah, let's start it. We start with a cube, and I put on this snapping, which is pretty helpful here. I go tap into edit mode, GZ, and I move this guy up. This is our house, so we call it house. Next step, we build our roof, so we say mesh plane, and we go to tap to edit mode, we go to subdivide, and now we grab these little guys here, GZ, and move them up, and this is our rooftop. Okay, that's nice. And important is that the center point here, it's called the origin, is on the z-axis, and that the roof is positioned above it. And same to the house. Here it's important that the origin is at the bottom of the cube, else it won't work. Because if you scale this up here now, this guy, the scaling is just going up and not to the bottom, which looks ridiculous. Okay, now we have a house and a plane. Not a plane, of course, a roof. Now we build the base for our geometry nodes, which is, in our case, is a plane. This is the size of our village. So you can call it whatever you want. I call it GN for geometry nodes. Then I press this little guy here, geometry nodes, which makes life pretty easy. So you see the values, and here's our geometry nodes. Tap new to get the geometry nodes editor, and like all the editors like shader, compositor editor, or whatever node editor Blender has, here is an input and an output. It's always the same. And yeah, we have now to plug in something here, and of course we want to do a point distribute. This is the distribution of our houses, and this house consists of a point instance, which is our house, and another point instance, which is our roof. And because a house has both, we have to join it. Like in real life, we need a house and a roof, and so we see something, and then we put this in, and now we do some sizing so that it doesn't look ridiculous but something good. So we go in edit mode, scale these guys down until it looks good, and then we do the same to the roof. We go to edit mode, scale it down, and then we have to go back to geometry nodes, and we have to correct the position of the roof so that the roof is above the house. So that's what we do now. We go to attribute, vector math, and we take the position of the roof and we write it back to the position. So basically with this attribute vector we are just changing the position of the roof, And you can see this if you change it to vector and now you move the Z value, the Z value, you see that the roofs are lifting up, and that's exactly what we want. And now we see the roof is ridiculous big, so that's why we now go to the roof again, tap to edit mode and scale it down until the roof doesn't look ridiculous but looks good. So back to geometry nodes, move this little guy up here until we have something like a house. And I think, yeah, you see we are ready. We have a village. But of course the distance of the houses are much too dense. So we go to Poisson disk here, we raise the distance to a good value and watch it. We have some result. We have a village, but as you can see, the village is just with the same houses and all uniform. This is not what people want. People want individual houses with other sizes and shapes. So what we do now is we randomize rotations. So we move this guy a bit up here. We connect this to this, and then we can randomize our rotation. So attribute randomize, and we put in here vector, and we call this rotation because it's an inbuilt attribute, and of course this is ridiculous. We don't want to rotate all values, we just want to rotate the value. So we put here 0 in and here a 0 in, and we want here a rotation by 2 times pi, which is 360 degrees, and you see now we have a nice village with randomized rotation, which looks pretty nice, I think. Now we want some randomness in the size. Example given, the size x of the houses. So we scale up the houses, and we do this by another random attribute, and we call it size x. So attribute randomize, and we call this scale x, and a min of 1 and a max of 3, so the houses can be 3 times long. And then we write this back to say attribute combine. Yeah, by the way, for an easy connection, if you don't want to drag all the way, just connect the both points you want to connect and then press it. Normally F works. Looks like for this guy here F doesn't work. So if you select these both here and type F, you get the connection, which is pretty handy, so you don't have to do this manually dragging. I hate it, especially if you, like me, have a trackpad on a MacBook, so it's pretty time wasting to do all this. With F you are much quicker. Now we have here the float. We need an attribute, and we put here the scale x in, and as a result we do the scale, and you see nothing. You see nothing because scale 0 makes no sense. You have to put it to 1, and you see now, yes, we have now scale x scale x of course, attribute in X, and in Z we want to float 1. And of course, scale X. Yeah, and now I see we have houses which can be longer. So we put the ways up the distance so they don't intersect, because it's a bit ridiculous, and in a village you have more place. So yeah, you see now we have a nice village here. And what we can do also, we can for example randomize the height of the rooftops. So let's scale it. So we give here another attribute. We look, here's our roof. So we have to use this branch here, and we say attribute randomize. And this is our roof height. And this can be from 1 to, let's say, 2. And now we put this in our scale of the roof. So attribute combine again. This is 1, 1, and we say it's the height. So we need an attribute in the z value. Put here our roof height, and the result is our scale. And as you can see, this is wrong in the X direction, because we need the same value as here, else it won't fit to the house. So we put here the scale X. And now, as you can see, if we play a little bit here, we can play with the height of the roof. So we have random roof heights. But what's not so nice is that it's lifting up off of the house. And we correct this by factor. And the factor is an attribute math node, and we multiply it from the roof height, and by a float. And as you can see now, hopefully, it doesn't work. Oh, yeah, here's the reason. We are not at the Z line, which I told you in the beginning, which is important. Don't know why this happened. Looks like I slept somehow. Let's check the house 2, whether it's all right. And here we have the same problem. So let's move it down. And hopefully now the problems are gone. Let me check. So, of course we have to adapt this. Yeah, the problems are gone, because now I corrected the origin point. So that's the way it goes. Let me check whether we can rise the height and nothing happened. Yeah, now it looks very good. Yeah, that was my tutorial. I hope you learned something and have fun with Blender and geometry nodes.